Blessings and welcome back, everyone, to our installment of Demetra George's second volume book overview. This is a companion to our Patreon study group that we're doing to work through the book together. I know it's been a few weeks since we've seen you. We've missed you, and it's good to be back. I'm astrologer Elsa Wadsworth, and I'm back again today with astrologer David Fisher and Matt Nolan.
Hello.
And people can find David on In the First Place Astrology here on YouTube and handles of the similar like. You can find Matt at the Astrologer's Encyclopedia and some handles that way on Twitter and here maybe on YouTube, Instagram, but they'll have everything linked below. You guys are familiar with their work, hopefully, and can follow them at the various places. And then we have the Patreon study group link in the description below if you are interested in taking this deeper. We really go through piece by piece with the book and with the exercises together in our group. It's really fun. So let's go ahead and get started on chapter 84. We are at the Lord of a House. So we're at step 6. We are looking here now at the location and the topics of the Lord of the house. Here we're going to look at, or Demetra writes that the Lord of the house is sort of this final component on developing the judgment of a house topic that we've been talking about in the previous video, so you can go reflect on those steps. The Lord of the house oversees the affairs of the house and the house it rules, as well as any planets that reside in that place, which I think we're all familiar with, but this is what we're talking about today. Additional considerations to incorporate into your understanding of the final interpretation concerning the outcome of the house. What we're doing is in that final step is taking into consideration these final interpretations in considering the outcome of the house. So varying opinions exist on whether the planets that reside in the house have more influence on the outcome or whether the Lord of the house has more influence on the outcome. And Demetra tells us here that both considerations are mutually interactive. So that's how we're driving our interpretation. You have to take the levels of the planet and its condition and the levels of the house and its condition and sort of let them talk back and forth to each other. But what's more important is going to vary depending on the astrologer and their background and how they work with it. But Demetra here is saying to us that these are mutually interactive and mutually important. The planet that is located in the house will have a more direct and visible and immediate role on what goes on in that sector. So I think that's interesting as well, because if the Lord of the house is not in the house, but you do have a planet there, it's going to kind of speak loudly to that place. And then the house Lord is going to have to be considered sort of next, which we have already laid out. So she's just kind of getting us caught up on those basic considerations or where we're aiming our minds. And she outlines like a 5-point list in this chapter, and she kind of expands on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through those 5 points, give a small iteration of what those are, and that gives you a good overview of the chapter. Number 1, the Lord of the house indicates the direction towards which the topics of the house will move. So the direction or the flow, or means by which the objectives of the house under consideration are fulfilled. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about just the flow of the topics of the house of Lord?
Yeah, I believe we can go into more detail in the group discussion, because this is meant to be a quick overview, just reminding everyone that if you want to discuss these topics more deeply with us, we are offering these study group sessions in the Patreon for this channel. If you check the link in the description, you can have all the information there. And we dive deep into the concepts that we are going into this book, analyzing in this overview here in the videos for YouTube. So if you enjoyed that, please don't forget to like, subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell button and comment on this video what your thoughts were about everything that we were mentioning here. But back to what you were saying, Elsa, we already have discussed how topics and planets relate to one another, how houses and planets relate to one another. We have how to make that final judgment, and it will involve a lot of what we've already seen, like house placement, condition of the planet by sign, essential dignity, basically, and all of those things.
Yeah, so I think basically what we're doing in this chapter is saying that the planet itself, like let's say we have a planet and a sign, would be trying to do one thing, but, or, just the house itself, if it's empty, will signify something. And this is point number 5, actually, but the ultimate outcome of that, regardless of the goal, will be dictated by the condition of the ruler. So I think it was in Chris Brenn's course, he has this example of like if you're staying in someone's house and they just got a promotion or they just won the lottery or things are going really well, you're going to have like your nice steak dinner. The mood is going to be positive, everything's going to be good, and you're going to be supported in what you're trying to do while you're staying at that house. And on the contrary, if that person just lost their job or they just got evicted or something, then the mood will be different. The mood will be more desperate and sad and like ineffective at the goal. You're not going to have your nice dinner, going to be support available for what to do. And so for number 1, so the first just like step in Demetra's little process here is the Lord of a house indicates the direction towards which the topics of that house move. So that's just, we're not considering the condition yet. We're just saying, let's say Lord of the 10th in the 11th, the career, the reputation of the native will be moving toward, wrapped up in their friends, their associates, their allies. Let's say the ruler of the 10th is in the 5th. Those topics will be flowing towards and related with children, and so on and so on.
Yep. It indicates the flow of the topics. So that is actually kind of deep and profound. And we are obviously having to mix this with all the considerations that we have thus far. But even just that itself, the direction or the flow, if you think about how you're trying to organize a topic or what you might say to a client, you have to then take into consideration another factor, another very important factor, which is the Lord of the house and its condition. And it's going to flow. Those two topics now are going to be connected, and you're going to have to make that a consideration. So then number 2, the Lord of a house is the originating cause of the positive and or problematic outcomes that eventuate in that house. So it's interesting, the originating cause here. So do you guys have anything to say about that?
Well, the planets, they are the signs for events, for they give us what is allowed through time to happen within a particular moment. And because they are what allow these things to happen, whatever they're doing with other planets, they're gonna draw from the resources of their houses when they're having those interactions and allowing something to happen in this realm. And that suggests that something from that house is going to be moved or required. You're going to have to take some action regarding that house to attend to a planet's request in a way. So let's say Mars transiting your 10th house rules your 7th. You're using 7th house topics to try and do stuff in your 10th house. You're using 10th house material, 7th house material to try and get some action going in your career house, some relationship
or
stuff.
dependent upon. So it's like one is affecting the other dependent upon that relationship, and they're needing resources from each other, or you're going to have to look at them to kind of delineate the topic. It's like their resources are affecting one another. So somehow the relationship and the career are going to be, you're going to have to evaluate both their condition and how they're talking, what they have.
The way that I interpreted it was that so the Lord of a house is the originating cause of, so like Mars in the 10th, the career matters precipitated by that Mars would be the cause of 7th house matters. So it's just another, I think, way of saying that there's a deep relationship between the two houses. And that also the nature of the planet itself dictates sort of the outcome of that house. So if we have a Martian seventh house, that will say one thing about the nature of the marriage, the nature of the partner, versus like a Jupiter ruled seventh house.
It's interesting. Let's just use this quick example of Mars ruling the seventh, being in the 10th, and she's talking about origin story, origin cause. Maybe the reason why you're making whatever changes in your career that you need to make are because of something your partner has requested, or because of something that needs to be done with the partner. So maybe you want to get a better paying job because you need to take care of the partner, or anything like that, right? So she's talking about like the origin story of the cause of the thing being related to the partner.
Yeah.
And again, you look, how are we going to select then which one is causing the happenings in which? Well, you look at the Time Lords. You have to look at all of this as we have to make these judgments with a pack of tools. And it's not just assessing planetary strength and the outcome and all of that, but it's like, when is that allowed to be, and through which process is that allowed to be, right? Through which mechanism of the chart that the chart disposes for the native is that allowed to be?
Yeah, and like David's saying, you have a pack of tools, and it's hard for us to just go, clip by clip and piece by piece, because we're not giving you the whole story all at once, essentially. So it's like, but what Demetra is doing is she's saying, here's the entire toolbox. Here's the screwdriver. Here's how you use it. Here's the hammer. Here's how you use it. And when, right? You do this hammer before the screwdriver or whatever. So we're kind of giving you the tools, how to use them in the toolbox, and then building together like when you use them, under what conditions, and which ones first, and that type of thing.
And you will see in these 5 points of this outline that she is doing just that. She is recalling all of those factors that she's already used of the planetary condition into how to assess the final judgment of a particular topic, as we've said before. She goes into examples most of this chapter, because they are very good examples. Like, this is a very meaty chapter in the sense that she really makes the analysis more thoroughly than previously of a particular topic in a native's chart. And we are seeing one of the tools finally of astrology here, which is this universal approach to a chart. I'm using Robert Schmidt's words here, this universal topical approach, in a way, where you look at a planet through a specific topic and you judge it generally, how it's going to go throughout the native's life. And you can see that reverberating every time that particular topic is activated as a main issue in the native's narrative.
So moving on halfway through to number 3, the Lord's own significations, nature, condition, witnessing, and location also influence the outcome of the house it rules. This applies both to the resources it can provide to any planets occupying that house, as well as to the house topics themselves.
So this reminds me of, I think it was in chapter 79, where she has us delineate the planets, where she says, what is the condition of the planet? What is the nature of the sign? What is the condition of the house? This is what the planet's trying to do. And then what we do is we assess how well is that going to be able to happen. So far in this, like with 1 and 2, we've said the ruler of the house is in this house. It has this nature. It has these significations based on the planet. So we can form a delineation that's, whatever Mars ruling the 7th in the 10th uses the topics of the career to create relationships, that kind of a thing, in a Martian kind of way, in a Martian context. Now we can say that planets, we can take into account Mars's sign position, the aspects that Mars has with other planets, to say how well is Mars going to be able to do that, because the ruler of the sign does, in a lot of ways, have sort of the final say of a given topic.
Yeah, and the guest host relationship, I guess, is just what that is just saying, like, whatever temple you're in, you're looking to the caretaker of the temple for, to tell you where the things are and what it has to offer and all of that. So yep. I think that kind of personifies the guest host relationship again.
Yep.
So number 4, the favorable or unfavorable nature of the house, the one you're looking at, the one under investigation, the topic, the topical, the topoi, must be evaluated together with the Lord's impact on that house. So again, condition, but maybe even aspect, if it could see it, if it can't, that type of a thing. So the unfavorable or favorable nature of the house would also be if it's a good house, if it's angular, if it's a bad house. You guys, what do you guys have for that?
Yeah, just general angularity, which we've discussed in previous videos ad nauseum here, like how angular houses are really powerful, how they make planets become really noticeable in a person's narrative, and how that brings a lot of awareness and agency to that particular trait or character in the person's not like. No, I was just going to suggest like a mental exercise. Like, what if a house is favorable, has good planets in it, or favorable planets in it, but then the ruler is badly placed? How would that look like for you? Or the ruler is really good, doing well in the chart, but the house itself is cadent and averse to the ascendant and with a malefic contritus sect in it. So even though the ruler is very perhaps a benefic and very well placed, how does that pan out for the native in general, right?
I think the point here is that certain houses have the ability to produce better or worse outcomes. And so the ruler of the 12th, for example, is only going to be able to produce so much good. So you can have like a really, really well-placed ruler of the 12th, but you're still dealing with 12th house topics. And so there's only so much that you can get there. And a good outcome there might be more like suppressing the bad outcomes of the 12th house and allowing for successful dealings with whatever bad spirit is, right? Rather than being like mired and blown adrift by those same significations, which would be like a poor ruler. And then we can have houses like the 1st or the 10th that are, or the 11th, which are like good houses, and a good outcome there is much, much more positive, and a bad outcome there can be more like limiting the positive that can come from them.
Yeah, and it's a bummer when like a good house's lord is like mucked up, or it's a bummer. That's basically I think what we're getting at. Like a big takeaway here is you can have the good house, but if its lord is in aversion or like messed up, like that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So and vice versa, right? You can take that example and sort of run with it. So now we finally come to the 5th. The Lord is also responsible for the long-term prognostication of the affairs of the house, whether they will improve or diminish over the course of life. So now we're not just talking about directly event-based, like when a Time Lord or whatever activates it. We're looking at it as like a long-term sort of narrative for the life when we're looking at the Lord of the house and what topics are dragged into it, what's its general condition over the life, does it get better or worse over time, those types of things.
So basically, like the way that I think of this is that if you're staying at someone's house, you have to ask permission for things like, hey, can I eat this food? Can I take a blanket? Can I use the shower or whatever? And they can either say yes or no, or they can have the ability to say yes or no. They can say like, no, because I can't afford it, or no, because I hate you. And so,
or no, because I don't have a shower.
Right, exactly, right. And so, or no, because I'm not home and I'm just not going to answer the phone, right? And so, the way I see it in the end is that, and I think we talked about this a couple months ago, is that the planets in the sign sort of have to petition the Lord. And so they can try to do whatever they want, and they can begin things and set up circumstances, but if the Lord is not in agreement to that, especially if the Lord is reverse, it's not going to work out. And if the Lord is in agreement, then it will work out.
Yeah. And it's how much does it really have to offer? It can want to help you or give you the little things that it has, but if it has resources taxed, it's like, I could want to be a good host to you, but I only have a certain amount of resources in my own apartment or in my own, so it's like exactly that. Okay, cool. And then she just mentions one thing about like not being witnessed, right? It's just the fundamental lack of understanding or external support, like on that topic of the 5, right? Is just like and we're not saying like it's your fault or you're never going to get it, but it could be like within you, like a lack of being able to see or understand how those two topics actually do influence each other. Like, why do I always have this bad career thing? Because you can see the career thing, but you really have a lack of external support or understanding on how that other lord or that other topic is really influencing. So I thought that was interesting to kind of include.
Like one thing that I like to think of is that like a planet in good condition has circumstance on its side, and so like planets that are in their domicile will be able to act in a way that's natural to them and have circumstance respond favorably. And so if a planet is not in that condition, or if, let's say, we're trying to, like Elsa said, deal with career matters, we have the ruler averse to its own house, that would be like, and there's a planet in there or not, it's like the 10th house is calling Mars, and Mars is absent. Mars is just not picking up the phone. And so we can try to get the career going, but it's going to be, barring any other factors, it's going to be difficult to get circumstance like on your side to put the effort into, meeting the right person, being at the right place, that kind of thing.
Missed calls like phone tag all day.
Exactly. And so there's a way in which it's almost better to have like a hostile landlord than one who doesn't pick up the phone at all, because in that case you can still get your sink fixed. It might just be really annoying versus like having no one to help you at all.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. But don't despair, none of this is your fault. And there's like lots of mitigation and factors like David was saying earlier. So let's, I almost feel like I have to give a disclaimer like every episode, like don't despair. This is just one of the steps or whatever, But again, thank you guys, both of you, for being here today. And thank you, audience, for joining us once again. It's been so awesome to be back. We have a few things on the chopping block or on the roster. We have a couple interviews that are going to be coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. And then we did sort of like delay due to travels and other things about getting our 300 subscriber video out, and now we're almost to 5, so let's get us to 5, and then we are going to do the 300 sub video pretty soon, but it might have to be just me and David because Katie is traveling.
We've been promising it.
I know, we keep saying it, but then we're waiting for this or that. But yeah, we have some interviews coming out. We have the Patreon study group, a week from now, so sign up for that. We do have a tier as low as $5 for those who need it, for like a sliding scale type of thing. And then some projects on the way to you from the channel, as well as I have been like having a lot of fun with my Instagram stories with the Decans. Like I'm keeping people going with this Decan thing and trying to get us to like maybe watch the videos, rewatch the videos, comments, and I'm doing fun story things over on Instagram. So if you want to follow the Hellenistic Astrology on Instagram, the stories are they're really fun and consistent. And so yeah, if you want some Decanic inspiration, follow us over there. All right, y'all. See you next time.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Matauka ka bersama yo demikian soba da soba kena matahiban nak kau di mana.